Nearly 24 people facing charges after a major drug trafficking bust in Orange County. It involves 3 North Carolina colleges and universities, App State, Duke, and UNC. CBS 17's Bridget Chapman joins us live at UNC in Chapel Hill. Bridget, what have you found?
Angela, officials say this major operation involves more than $1.5 million worth of drugs.
Including the FBI. You can see there Cash Patel talking about drug raids in that city. Let's listen in to this on Live Now.
Okay. What you see amassed in front of you is what happens when you let good cops be cops, when you let interagency, state and local police work together to rid our cities of the harmful plague of drug trafficking organizations and gang violence. And there's an important distinction to be made. Yesterday I was in the White House with the President for the Homeland Security Task Force. And while that lift is being done at the international level to wipe out drug trafficking organizations and gang violence, our urban cities, from Los Angeles to Philadelphia, New York, and everywhere in between, are being plagued by localized street gangs and gang violence and drug trafficking organizations. Once the drugs and guns come in, they need an outfit to deliver them to our communities. And we needed to attack those outfits.
Part 1. Dawn of Truth. The fog was still clinging to the Golden Gate when the first Black Hawk crossed the bridge at rooftop level, running dark, no lights, rotors muffled by the damp air. 4:17 on November 18, 2025. Most of San Francisco was asleep. Most of America still believed the war was happening somewhere else. They were wrong, and they were about to pay the price for that innocence. At that exact moment, 4,000 armed federal agents were moving through the streets like a silent tide. No sirens, no warnings, just the soft click of breaching charges and the low thump of flashbangs that sounded, to the few early risers who heard them, like distant construction work. By sunrise, the city that prided itself on being the resistance would discover it had already been occupied for 4 years without knowing. They called the operation Red Ledger. No press release, no advance leak, no courtesy call to the mayor's office. Just a single line transmitted to every agent the night before. Execute at H hour. Full lethal authority. Target is sovereign American soil. The first door to come off its hinges belonged to a nondescript biomedical startup on Illinois Street called Pacific Horizon Institute. From the outside, it looked like every other overfunded Bay Area incubator. Frosted glass, succulents, a ping-pong table nobody used. Inside was the largest clandestine fentanyl lab ever discovered on U.S. territory. 60,000 death doses an hour, 24 hours a day, for 4 straight years. That's 840 million pills, enough to kill every man, woman, and child in the United States 7 times over. And the man who signed the permits, who rerouted the city contracts, who personally escorted the Chinese chemical suppliers through the port without inspection, was the same man who stood on the steps of City Hall every June wearing a rainbow sash, promising to keep our communities safe from harm. Mayor Jonathan Hale, 47 years old, Harvard Law, former prosecutor, the face on every San Francisco Strong billboard after the pandemic. The voice that told grieving mothers fentanyl was a public health issue, not a criminal one. He sold their children for cash. Part 2. Unveiling Hell. The raid began with a perfect lie. At 0423, a young DEA agent dressed as an Uber Eats driver rang the bell at Hale's Pacific Heights mansion. The mayor himself opened the door in silk pajamas, holding a phone to his ear, laughing about fundraising numbers. The agent put 2 suppressed rounds center mass before Hale even registered the uniform. The phone kept transmitting for another 9 seconds. On the other end, a man with a Guadalajara accent whispered a single word in Spanish. Jefe? Then static. Down in the Mission, another team breached a converted church that still had stained glass windows of saints looking down on stainless steel pill presses running at full tilt. 2 cartel chemists in hazmat suits tried to initiate the dead man protocol. Thermite charges wired to melt every hard drive and incinerate the building. A Delta Force operator shot the wires out of their hands from 40 yards in near-total darkness. The Saints kept watching. By 05:10, the port was locked down. Longshoremen who had been paid $50,000 a container to look the other way were zip-tied on the docks while cranes froze mid-air, containers dangling like hanged men. Inside one of them, 4.2 tons of precursor chemicals labeled agricultural fertilizer, enough to keep the lab running for another 18 months. And in a refrigerated warehouse in Bayview, agents found something that made even the hardest narcotics cops stop breathing. Rows of children's coffins, white, small, lined up like cars in a showroom. They weren't for shipping drugs. They were for shipping children who had already died. The cartels had started pre-positioning funeral supplies because the bodies were piling up faster than U.S. morgues could handle them. One agent vomited on the concrete floor. Another just stared, whispering the same sentence over and over. "This is my country. This is happening in my country." Part 3. The Room That Didn't Exist. At 6:63, the FBI tactical team reached the top floor of City Hall itself. They expected an empty suite. Instead, they found a hidden door behind the official portrait of Harvey Milk. A retinal scanner accepted Mayor Hale's eye. They brought the body. The door swung open onto a room no architect had ever drawn. Black marble, no windows, a single desk. On it, 3 passports: Costa Rica, UAE, Paraguay, $1.8 million in banded hundreds, and a ledger bound in human skin. Actual human skin, later confirmed from a rival Sicario. Every page listed a bribe, a permit, a murdered informant, a child who wouldn't make it to graduation. And at the back, written in Hale's own handwriting, a single line that will be read aloud in court for years to come. "If we don't monetize the chaos, someone else will." The last entry was dated the day before the raid. He knew it was over. He still took the money. But that wasn't the worst discovery. In the bottom drawer of the desk, agents found a USB drive labeled simply, "Insurance." The videos inside made even those who had seen everything turn away. They were footage from parties in Pacific Heights, not fundraisers, private parties, where city officials, state legislators, even 2 members of Congress drank champagne with cartel bosses, while in the next room, teenagers kept dropping from overdoses. They laughed. They congratulated each other. They raised glasses to toast the partnership. One video showed a state senator who had co-sponsored legislation on safe fentanyl access, counting cash next to a pile of bodies covered with plastic tarps. America wasn't just betrayed, it was mocked. Part 4. The Silent Country. By noon, the footage was leaking. Not from mainstream outlets, they were still trying to get comment from a dead man, but from body cams, from burner phones, from whistleblowers who decided the public couldn't be shielded anymore. America watched a 4-minute clip shot inside the Pacific Horizon lab. Endless tables of blue M30 pills, the exact same pills that killed a 15-year-old cheerleader in Ohio, a 19-year-old Marine in North Carolina, a 17-year-old honor student in Orange County. The camera panned across a wall of children's faces, photos the cartel kept as trophies. Then the screen cut to Mayor Hale's official campaign ad, the one where he hugged a sobbing mother and promised to end the overdose epidemic with compassion. The country didn't riot. It went quiet. That terrifying American quiet that happens right before something irreversible. In diners in Pennsylvania, fathers stared at their coffee and finally understood why their daughters never came home from Coachella. In Houston suburbs, mothers opened their teenagers' drawers and found the same blue pills stamped with the same tiny M. In rural Kentucky, veterans who survived Fallujah realized the enemy had followed them home and was winning without firing a shot. 110,000 dead last year alone, more than Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan combined. And the man who opened the gate wore a progressive pin on his lapel. But that still wasn't everything. Part 5. The Network of Betrayal. In the hours that followed, as investigation teams dug deeper, they discovered the operation wasn't just San Francisco. It was a network. 23 cities, 57 elected officials, 134 city employees, all connected by the same payroll system, the same encryption, the same mantra: compassion over punishment. They had turned progressive slogans into smokescreens. In Portland, an overdose crisis center was discovered to actually be a distribution facility where cartels handed out pills wrapped in harm reduction packaging paid for by taxpayer money. In Seattle, a safe injection program was actually a money laundering operation, with $18 million in federal funds disappearing into offshore accounts, while the overdose rate jumped 340%. In Chicago, a police superintendent elected on promises of justice reform had destroyed 6,000 fentanyl testing kits, calling them tools of criminalization. Then he bought a villa in Cabo with cash. The pattern was identical everywhere. Talk about reform, take cartel money, watch Americans die, blame the system. But now the system was fighting back. Part 6. America's Sleepless Night. By nightfall, parents were burning "Defund the Police" yard signs in the street. By midnight, gun stores in free states reported lines around the block, not for hunting rifles, for home defense shotguns. By the next morning, the phrase "treason has a new face" was trending everywhere, along with a single photograph: Jonathan Hale smiling on election night, arm around his 16-year-old daughter, both of them glowing under the lights. The same daughter whose college fund was found wired from an account in Guadalajara. But what happened next was something no one could have predicted. In small towns across America, something shifted. Not in politics, in the soul. People started going to each other's homes, not to protest, but to pray. No organization, no leaders, just neighbors bringing candles, photos of children they'd lost, and a determination that this betrayal would end. In Iowa, a farmer named Thomas Hendricks drove his truck to the state capitol with a simple sign: "They killed my son. Now I want justice." By evening, 2,000 other trucks had joined him. In Texas, a mother named Sarah Ochoa started an online petition calling for military tribunals for every involved official. Within 6 hours, it had 4 million signatures. In Florida, veterans began patrolling ports and borders on their own, unpaid, unsupervised, just with walkie-talkies and a determination that no more drugs would get through. The government didn't lead this awakening. It started from the bottom up. Part 7. The Address. 2 days later, the president went on national television. No podium, no teleprompter, just a desk and a map of the United States with red dots marking every city where cartel labs had now been confirmed. Portland, Albuquerque, Atlanta, Chicago, Des Moines. 23 and counting. He said 10 sentences, nothing more. This is not a drug war anymore. This is an invasion. We did not start it, but we will finish it. Every mayor, every governor, every official who took their money will face a military tribunal. We are no longer asking for permission. We are taking our country back. Starting tonight. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. The broadcast ended with no applause, no music, just the seal and silence. Outside, in 1,000 small towns, church bells began to ring at the same time. Not Sunday morning bells. The kind they ring when the news is so bad words no longer work. Part 8. The fog lifts. In San Francisco, the fog finally lifted. For the first time in years, the city could see clearly. And what it saw was the truth. The enemy never needed tanks. They just needed a mayor who hated his own country more than he loved his daughter. They needed open borders and closed eyes. They needed us to believe that compassion meant surrender. They needed us to look away while they built death factories in the shadow of our monuments. November 18th, 2025 will not be remembered as the day the FBI raided a lab. It will be remembered as the day America woke up and realized the war was already inside the house. The soldiers aren't coming. They're already here. And this time, they're not asking for your vote. They're asking for your soul. Don't give it to them. Not again. Never again. Epilogue. The choice. What happened next wasn't in the hands of government. It was in the hands of every father sitting at the dinner table, deciding whether to tell his children the truth. It was in the hands of every mother checking her child's drawer one last time. It was in the hands of every neighbor deciding whether to knock on the door and ask, "Is your family okay?" Because the truth is, we have the country we choose to defend, and if we don't defend it, no one else will. The church bells are still ringing. The fog has lifted. Now we must decide what we'll do with the light.